What's the most unbelievable, wait, you don't get this, moment you've had with another adult? When I was a teenager, my mum was convinced I was doing drugs. I needed to wee, and even though I was only in the bathroom for like 30 seconds, I came out and she was like, "Aha, got you?" She said she knew I was doing drugs in the bathroom because I was on my period and I didn't have time to change my tampon while I was in there. I told her I hadn't changed my tampon because it had only been in for like an hour. Then she asked how I had peed without changing my tampon. That's how I learned my mum didn't know that the urethra was separate from the vagina. I told her I just moved the string out the way. She was adamant that it's impossible to pee with a tampon in because then the pee wouldn't come out. She was about 50 years old at that time. She still didn't believe they were different holes. I had to go onto the computer and pull up a diagram, and she still refused to believe it, stating, "I think I would know if I had two different holes." Anyway, a few years later, when I did start doing drugs, she had no idea. I was somewhere between 12 and 16 when my mom laughed at me for saying there were 3 holes down there. She said she used to believe that too. I got embarrassed and assumed I must be wrong until I learned years later that I was correct all along. She's almost 70 now. I wonder if anyone's ever told her. I can top that. I remember somewhere around 9th grade a boy saying something about girls having 2 holes in front, and I laughed at him and told him how dumb he was. I often wonder if he knew how ignorant I was at the time, or if I just made him more ignorant with my insistence. Oh, and I'm a woman, so you'd think I would know better, but this was pre-internet, and I grew up in a conservative state that thought sex education promoted promiscuousness or some nonsense like that. I've always hated the pearl clutchers because of that, and I still remember the day that I realized my husband, who had grown up in a liberal state, knew more about my anatomy than I did. I sat down at a computer and learned everything I could about vaginas and labia and everything else. It still makes me mad when I think about it. I just had to explain credit cards to my 73-year-old mother. She didn't know that by paying only the minimum balance, she was racking up interest charges. She also didn't know that you could pay a credit card balance in full each month. Like she didn't know that was allowed. It certainly explains a lot of my upbringing. My ex's father would pay extra on his credit card bill every month because, well, I never understood why. But he owed money on some equipment he had purchased, and was being charged interest, and would pay the minimum. I tried to explain to him that he would pay less in the long run if he put more money towards the loan, and paying the credit card company in advance did nothing for him, but he wouldn't listen. He just shook his head, smiled, patted my knee, and told me he wouldn't have a credit score of almost 600 if he didn't know how to play the system. I've had so many conversations with adults who do not understand how government benefits work, or hell how their own Medicaid works, and I have talked to a few that didn't even know they were on Medicaid. They never questioned why they never paid for doctors' visits and medication, while also not paying anything for health insurance. I have seen someone ask for $10K in rental assistance, thinking that their local human services office can just hand over 10 grand to everyone who asks. They also deny they are in the exact same position as people they loudly complain are freeloaders taking advantage of a system. So it's all right that you get food stamps, daycare assistance, Medicaid, Section 8, and gas vouchers, but God forbid someone you decide you don't like gets half that. The insurance thing. I remember in 2016 how many people even said, "I don't have Obamacare, I get my health care through the ACA." Or the people currently that have had their own food stamps impacted and don't understand that that's part of welfare. It's baffling. I even saw someone the other day say the president can't possibly be a felon because felons can't be president. Trying to train people at my last job. I couldn't even get either of the guys under me to stack pallets properly. They'd constantly be throwing pallets into the pile upside down, sideways, or broken, then just keep throwing more on top until they had a teetering stack above their heads. I also had a hell of a time trying to teach them about stacking cases in pretty basic patterns and interlocking. I ended up making templates in Excel to try to demonstrate. One of them would still build multiple pallets into each other all the time, although he did seem to grasp the concept of interlocking at the point. I had a girl I worked with like this. The job was packing into boxes. Handed her a flat box and some tape, and she looked at me like I had 2 heads. Took a long time to teach her how to make it up. Then she could never stack them, fragile items inside perfectly packed, and she's trying to stack them sideways. I had an in-law try to tell me how morally reprehensible people were in third world counties who do the mining tree cutting environmentally damaging practice here. And she wasn't talking about the companies or the leaders, but the basic workers. When I said people will do pretty much anything to be able to feed their families, she just responded that they should let their families starve to death instead of cutting down trees in the rainforest. And that's what she would do. I was flabbergasted. This one wins. That person is dumb as a rock. Don't insult rocks, please. I'm a construction worker. I was out in a field inspecting for a dirt crew placing storm pipes in the ground, and one of the guys looks up at the sky in awe. He says, "Holy shit, guys, the moon is in the sky during the day?" He was dead serious. He thought the moon only came out at night. This is a man with a wife and kids. Maybe he never looked at the sky growing up. He had forgotten about the eclipse that was a few weeks before it. The whole crew gave him crap all day, pointing out obvious stuff like clouds and shit. Dude, how can a cloud come out? It's a sunny day. The eclipse a few days prior really was the nail in that guy's coffin. It never occurred to me, but this is now one of multiple people I've heard of who didn't know the moon could be out during the daytime. My sister-in-law's boyfriend, much younger than me, Gen Z, thought postboxes were decorative historical. He was astonished to hear that you could actually put letters into them and someone would come and take them out to deliver them to the recipient. My sister-in-law's boyfriend, much younger than me, Gen Z, thought postboxes were decorative historical. He was astonished to hear that you could actually put letters into them and someone would come and take them out to deliver them to the recipient. I was renting a house to a Gen Z couple. They would drive across the county to hand-deliver the rent to me in person the first of every month. I explained that they could write a check and mail it. They asked how that worked, so I explained both how to write a check and how the post system works. They seemed amazed that such a system existed. Then there was a long silence, followed by deciding it sounded too complicated, and they wanted to keep delivering the rent in person. Smart guy I worked with, had an MBA from a major university, told me he didn't believe in evolution, said he had seen single-cell animals under a microscope, which proved that they're still here and didn't evolve into us. Dude thought things evolve like effing Pokemon. I work in higher education. A colleague recently told me that he isn't sure the Earth is round. I started joking with him like, "Oh no, are you a flat earther?" He said, "Of course not. He knows the Earth isn't totally flat, he just isn't sure it's totally round either." Another colleague asked what he thought about the images of Earth taken from space. He said, "Well, I wasn't there. I don't know if we've actually been to space. They could just fake those pictures." We all had to abandon the conversation. He's always seemed very normal and rational. I had no idea he believed in conspiracy theories. Freshman college kids renting apartment. Mice problem, big U.S. city. Both exterminator and I told them to keep food in fridge or hard plastic or metal container. Make it difficult for mice to find food and they'll go elsewhere. We also put out a couple of traps. Go back a week later and they had an open box of cereal next to a mousetrap. Still experiencing mice. When I reiterated putting food in hard containers to deter mice, they thought they would catch the 1 or 2 mice with cereal and be done. Had to explain there are millions of mice in the city and catching one was not going to solve the problem. I had a couple of roommates who wouldn't put the trash, and we got mice. I informed them we had to clean up the mess, take the trash out regularly, and set traps. One soft-hearted roomie was fine with everything but the traps. His suggestion was we just leave a little food out so the mice would stay under the sink. I had to explain that all that would do was guarantee more mice. Thanks for watching, and if you want, like this video and subscribe for more. It helps a lot.